Shadows of Iron, a Daughters of Iron short story. By Joan de la Haye. Mission brief. Confidential top secret. To Daughters of Iron Team Alpha. From Jane. Regarding Operation Iron Veil Asset Extraction, Dr. Karen Blake. Date, the 4th of February 2036. Mission objective. Extract Dr. Karen Blake, former U.S. defense biochemist, current asset of Kruger Industries, from a secured research facility located on the outskirts of the Shanghai Corporate Zone. Dr. Blake defected to the Sino-Russian bloc, with proprietary data on synthetic bioweapon countermeasures. Client claims she was taken. Intel suggests voluntary defection. Deliver the asset alive to Kruger Industries custody. Secondary objective. Recover or destroy any data drives, nanotech samples, or genetic archives in Dr. Blake's possession. Known parameters. Surveillance grid. Shanghai operates under the Omni Logistics AI surveillance network, facial gate and biometric overlays. Detection to intervention window, 11.3 seconds. Synthetic overlays, corporate AR facades in use for crowd and sensor manipulation. Expect false signage, phantom personnel, and delayed visual feeds. Autonomous security, quadruped robotic units and drone swarms active within the perimeter. AI pattern analysis prioritizes foreign anomalies. Access controls, genetic ID required for all internal zones. Biolocks tied to Dr. Blake's genome, DNA spoofing or sample theft recommended. Digital twin, facility fully mirrored in a virtual environment. If you're spotted on camera, assume your location is compromised in both realities. Climate conditions, AO weather. Temp and humidity, 33 degrees Celsius, 90 to 95% humidity. Storm pattern, heavy smog and intermittent acid rain after 2000 local time. Systems impact, atmospheric interference may disrupt drone telemetry, use this for stealth. Tactical notes, thunder will mask small arms fire. Avoid storm drains, Shanghai's overflow systems are unstable. Payment. 75,000 corporate credits, plus extraction bonuses if the target remains intact and communicative. Note, initial deposit of 25,000 credits has been transferred to Team Alpha's offshore account to confirm engagement. Remaining balance payable, on successful delivery of asset. Notes. Client insists on a face-to-face briefing prior to deployment, an uncommon request. Meeting scheduled at Kruger Industries operational offices, Singapore Freeport District. Official corporate registry remains Johannesburg, Republic of South Africa. Treat this as a formal client interaction, discretion and professional presentation required. Further intelligence packets and access credentials will be transmitted once the client confirms all operational parameters. Client emphasizes minimal collateral, though the definition remains subjective. Avoid PRC state entanglement. Dr. Blake may be a defector, a hostage or bait. Adjust accordingly. End of brief. File ID DOIRON ALPHA01 the 4th of February 2036. Clearance SIGMA read. Encrypted via Ghostfeed Protocol version 3.1. Chapter 1 Briefing. The face behind the contract. The lobby smelled like money. Polished marble floors reflected soft pools of light from chandeliers salvaged from some Fortress Paris auction, gleaming proof that money still bought history. The receptionist at the front desk smiled as if she were guarding a secret, instead of a door. Everything about the place screamed respectable corporate headquarters. Which was of course bullshit. Ava adjusted the cuff of her tailored suit jacket as she walked in step with her two partners. She hated the way the fabric clung to her shoulders, she preferred the clean lines of body armor, but appearances mattered. No one in this building saw 3 mercenaries, they saw 3 executive consultants. Ava made sure of it. The elevator purred as it lifted them toward the 12th floor. Its interior was a hall of mirrors, each pane doubling their reflections into infinity. Corporate vanity, Ava thought. Surveillance disguised as design. In the mirrored glass, she studied her team. Maggie looked like she'd stepped straight out of a fashion feed, sharp cheekbones, red lipstick, a kind of smile that drove men crazy. Useful whenever they needed to distract anything with a pulse, and poor judgment. She carried herself with feline grace, the kind that belied the fact she could field strip a rifle blindfolded, and put a round through a coin at 200 meters. Beside her, Jess was contrast-made flesh, broad-shouldered, hair cropped close, her suit cut looser to hide the bulk of muscle underneath. She had the look of someone who'd rather be anywhere else, preferably somewhere with explosives and fewer suits. 3 women in tailored black. Nobody looking at them would think killers for hire. That was the point. The elevator chimed. The doors slid open onto thick carpet and a glass-walled office that looked like an ad for corporate success, sleek, expensive, and utterly devoid of personality. The man waiting for them fit the room perfectly. He rose from behind a desk, large enough to seat a family of 6. His charcoal grey suit whispered bespoke tailoring, and the watch on his wrist probably cost more than their last weapons shipment. His smile was slick, rehearsed, the smile of someone who lies for a living and invoices afterwards. "Ladies," he said, gesturing them to the chairs opposite him. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." Ava took the middle chair, Maggie to her right, Jess to her left. Together, they formed a united front. "Mr. Kruger, is it?" Ava asked. Her tone was polite, clipped English precise but touched with the faintest Russian lilt. "That's right." He folded his hands, rings flashing under the office's low amber light. "Kruger Industries has an urgent matter requiring discretion and efficiency. Qualities I'm told you excel at." "Your credit transfer cleared," Maggie said, crossing her legs with deliberate poise. "Which means you've already decided to hire us. But that doesn't mean we'll take the job." Kruger's smile faltered for a fraction before reasserting itself. "Direct. I like that." Jess leaned back, arms folded. "You like our results, not our charm. Let's skip the foreplay." A flicker of irritation crossed Kruger's face, gone almost before it appeared. He tapped a control inset into the desk, and a holographic projection shimmered into being, a rotating profile of a woman in her 40s, dark hair pulled back, steel-rimmed glasses glinting with metadata. "Dr. Karen Blake," Kruger said, as the hologram rotated slowly. "Senior biochemist. Ex-US Defense. She disappeared 2 weeks ago." He paused, choosing his words like a man counting bills. "Kruger Industries maintains she was abducted. Other intelligence, less convenient intelligence, suggests she left of her own volition for the Sino-Russian bloc. Either way, she's currently located at a secure research complex on Shanghai's outskirts. We want her returned." Ava's face didn't change. "And the facility intel?" "We'll push the package through your usual channel when you accept," Kruger replied. "Encrypted feeds, satellite overlays, thermal sweeps. Her work touches synthetic bioweapon countermeasures, strategic value to anyone with a lab and a budget." Maggie tipped her head. "Alive, I presume?" "That would be preferable," Kruger said, the corporate cadence hiding a different vocabulary underneath. Jess snorted. "Preferable, huh? Not mandatory." Kruger ignored her. "The contract is clear. Deliver Dr. Blake to us, and you'll receive the remaining balance discussed with your agent." Ava studied him. Men like Kruger always thought they were in control. He wore power like a tailored suit, but underneath it, he was just another bureaucrat playing spook through a corporate front. She didn't trust him any more than she trusted Jane, who'd arranged this rare face-to-face. But Ava wasn't in the business of trust. She was in the business of precision, extraction, and the efficient application of violence. Sometimes that meant killing. Sometimes, like this, it meant retrieval. Either way, the invoice looked the same. She leaned forward, resting her hands lightly on the chair's armrests.
Since you've already paid the consultancy fee, it'd be rude not to take the job.
We don't do refunds. Kruger's eyebrow twitched before he forced another thin smile. Ava didn't smile back.
She never smiled at men like Kruger.
Not until after the job was done, or unless they were dying at her feet, especially if they tried to screw her team over. Kruger looked dumb enough to try. Chapter 2: Deployment. Ghost data. The hangar doors rolled back, letting in the late afternoon glare. Heat shimmered off the tarmac outside, the air thick with humidity and the ozone tang of recent rain. A sleek VTOL corporate jet gleamed in the sunlight, its polished white fuselage throwing back the glare like a mirror. To anyone passing by, it looked like the toy of a wealthy executive heading for another boardroom.
But tucked in the shadows along the walls were the crates that mattered, reinforced cases stenciled with false shipping codes.
Inside lay the real teeth of the operation. Jess was already prying one open with a multi-tool. The scent of gun oil hit the air. She grunted satisfaction as she lifted out the matte black frame of a smart rifle, its surface rippling faintly as it synced to her biometrics.
"Now this," she said, "fits better than any damn suit."
Maggie perched on a crate nearby, legs crossed, tapping something into a tactical slate. The light caught her lipstick like fresh blood. "Careful.
Someone might think you're happy, Jess."
Jess shot her a look.
"Happy's a stretch. More like prepared."
Ava ignored them both. Her wristcom buzzed, the ghostfeed encryption seal pulsing across her skin before turning into a voice in her ear, flat, clipped, familiar. "Jane."
"Contract confirmed," the voice said. "You are cleared for deployment."
"Cover identities uploaded. You are executive consultants for Huxley Global. Flight plan approved for Shanghai Corporate Zone. Estimated arrival, 48 hours. Local contact will provide secondary transport." Ava glanced at Maggie, who raised a brow. She switched the comm to external so they could all hear. Jane's voice continued, emotionless as static.
"Primary objective remains retrieval of Dr. Karen Blake.
Believed location, secure research facility, outskirts of Shanghai. Expect resistance. Officially, you are not there." Maggie let out a soft laugh.
"When are we ever officially anywhere?"
Jess snorted.
"Is Jane even her real name?"
Ava muted the channel.
"Don't care if it's Jane Jack or bloody hell 9000.
She gets us the jobs that pay, and the intel we need.
That's what matters."
Jess slid a magazine into the rifle with a satisfying click.
"Yeah. Until the day she sells us out. I don't trust voices in the dark." "Good," Ava said. "Neither do I."
The comm pinged again. Jane wasn't done.
"The client emphasizes discretion.
Collateral damage must be minimized.
Extraction only.
Do not engage Chinese state security, unless unavoidable." Maggie stretched like a cat, all casual grace.
"So don't start a war."
Jess smirked.
"Pity."
Ava killed the feed.
The hangar was silent again, except for the metallic clink of Jess checking chambers and the whisper of Maggie's fingers across the slate. Outside, thunder rolled, a storm building somewhere over the South China Sea.
Ava looked at them, her team. The only people she trusted. Kruger's fake smile still itched at the back of her mind. And Jane, with her disembodied orders and encrypted calm, wasn't much better. Didn't matter.
They had a job. They had each other. That was enough.
"Gear up," Ava said.
"We're wheels up in 2 hours.
Estimated arrival in Shanghai Corporate Zone just after midnight." Maggie and Jess nodded. The hangar echoed with the sounds of preparation, Velcro tearing, zippers rasping, steel sliding into place as weapons disappeared into false-bottom duffels. To anyone outside, it looked like 3 executives loading golf clubs and overnight bags. Jess slung her pack over one shoulder, testing the weight.
You'd think with all the money she earns, Jane could spring for a ride with a little more legroom.
Maggie smirked, striding toward the VTOL steps in her heels, like she was walking a runway instead of heading into a rescue op.
Please.
You'd complain if she booked us a gravity lounge on an Orbital Link shuttle.
Damn right, Jess said. They wouldn't let us bring our toys through orbital customs.
Ava was last to board, scanning the perimeter one final time. The sun bled into the horizon, turning the tarmac into molten glass. For a heartbeat she thought she saw movement beyond the fence, a glint, maybe a lens flash. Binoculars. A drone eye.
She blinked. The space was empty. But the itch between her shoulders didn't fade.
Paranoia. Or just good instincts refusing to die. Inside the jet was a cocoon of matte carbon and leather, quiet luxury wrapped around steel intent. Ava dropped into a seat near the front, pack within reach. Maggie slid opposite, legs elegantly crossed. Jess sprawled across the back row, boots up, cracking open a beer liberated from the minibar. The engines spun up with a low hum, AI flight controls murmuring status checks in Mandarin and English. The cabin lights dimmed as the aircraft taxied out, its navigation LEDs cutting through the haze. Maggie raised a piccolo bottle of wine, her grin sharp.
To Dr. Blake. May she still be breathing, and worth the trouble.
Jess lifted her beer.
And if she's not breathing, may we at least get paid?
Ava didn't lift anything. She just watched the runway lights smear into color as the jet gathered speed, lifting them into the darkening sky. For a moment she let herself feel it, the shift, the clean break between ground and air. Whatever they were leaving behind stayed there. Whatever waited in Shanghai, well. She leaned back and let her eyes close. The mission had begun. Once they leveled out above the cloud line, the cabin lights dimmed to a soft blue. Jess wasted no time raiding the minibar properly this time, boots thudding on the composite flooring, as she carried an armful of miniature bottles back to her seat. Pick your poison, ladies. She rattled them like dice before sliding them across the table. Maggie took a gin with the ease of someone selecting jewelry from a velvet tray.
You know, some of us prefer not to dull our senses before a job.
Jess cracked the cap off a whiskey.
Some of us prefer to get a buzz before spending 5 hours sealed in a corporate tin can.
Ava ignored the bottles and flicked open her tactical slate. The ghostfeed file Jane had sent glowed coldly against the glass, encrypted layers unfolding like petals. Lines of text scrolled past. Subject: Dr. Karen Blake, biochemist. Former U.S. Defense. Status: contested. Client reports abduction. Secondary intel flags possible voluntary extraction with classified biotech data. Current location: Shanghai Corporate Zone, under Sino-block protection. Ava pinched the bridge of her nose.
So much for clean intel.
Half the feeds say she was taken, the other half say she packed her own bags. Maggie's smile sharpened.
If she packed her own bags, she's either in love, in debt, or someone offered her something money can't buy. Or, Jess said between swigs, she's just an idiot.
Silence settled for a beat, filled by the low thrum of the engines and the faint buzz of the autopilot's course corrections. Ava scrolled further: Jane's clipped commentary, satellite feeds, thermal overlays, drone sweeps, digital twin schematics.
Jane says our backup team's already in country, Ava said. They'll handle exfil once we have Blake.
Jess snorted.
Another team already in country.
Translation: we're the expendables again.
I'm pretty sure that's in the contract fine print. Nothing new there, Maggie murmured, swirling her gin. Still, I'd like to know why Kruger wants her back so badly if she defected willingly, or if she even defected at all.
Messy politics for a private gig. The Americans haven't topped the innovation charts in years.
Not our job to ask, Ava said. Not our job to care, Jess countered.
The jet shuddered as it hit a pressure front, the AI co-pilot murmuring corrections in Mandarin. Maggie's glass tipped, spilling gin across the polished table. She muttered a curse in flawless French, a relic of childhood holidays in Paris with her mother before the world went to shit, then calmly dabbed the spill with a crisp napkin. Ava closed the slate.
Get some rest. Shanghai won't be forgiving if we're sloppy.
Jess stretched out like a cat, bottles clinking in her pockets. Maggie leaned her head back, eyes closing in practiced elegance. The drone of the engines and the whisper of air against the hull kept Ava awake. The mission was a tangle of red flags she couldn't ignore, the unnerving way Kruger had watched them, Jane's file being too clean, scrubbing all context from Blake's motives, and that conveniently placed second team. The job didn't pass the smell test, and Ava had learned to trust her nose. She stared out the porthole, nothing but the black ocean below and the faint curvature of the earth. Then the horizon bloomed with light. Shanghai. A web of gold and neon pulsing like circuitry against the dark. The jet began its descent, engines dropping to a low growl. Seatbelts clicked. Jess stirred first, stretching with a grunt as turbulence jostled her bottle collection under the seat. Maggie blinked awake beside her, already smoothing her hair and straightening her blouse. The landing gear deployed with a mechanical thud. The cabin vibrated as the jet hit the tarmac, the sudden deceleration pressing them into their seats. Ava gave the mission one final cold appraisal, then reached for her jacket. She fastened it, expression unreadable.
Masks on, ladies.
One wrong step out there, and we'll be begging for a quick death. Jess rolled her shoulders, cracking her neck.
I don't enjoy wearing this get-up.
She tugged at her collar. She'd have preferred a rebreather and combat plating to an executive suit. Maggie only reapplied her lipstick, using the reflection in the cabin window.
But these outfits open doors so much more easily, she said, snapping the case shut with a click.
They disembarked into another private hangar, smaller, unmarked, the air thick with jet fuel mildew and ozone. Their escort waited, a Chinese man in his 50s, sharp suit, expression carved from stone. No name. Just a curt nod toward a black sedan, old-school combustion, the kind that didn't ping a dozen senses the moment it left the tarmac. A ghost car in a world of electric eyes.
Jane said he's legit.
Jess muttered under her breath.
As legit as anyone she sends us, Ava replied.
The man drove without a word. The car slipped through the dense sprawl with the smooth precision of autopilot assistance.
Outside, Shanghai roared, electric signs flickering Mandarin slogans, vendors shouting over traffic, mopeds and delivery drones weaving between lanes.
The air shimmered with heat and synthetic humidity, every corner alive and watched. Cameras. Sensor poles. AI eyes in every reflection. Jess tapped a window with a gloved finger.
This city's a fucking ant farm.
Maggie smirked.
Then let's not be the ants that get stepped on.
The sedan slowed outside a high-rise in the business district, its mirrored facade reflecting the endless city lights. Inside, the lobby smelled of filtered citrus and expensive air recyclers. Businessmen passed with glassy eyes, scrolling holograms hovering over their wrists. Flight attendants laughed too loudly by the elevators. Normal. Forgettable. Their escort handed Ava a slim envelope. Inside, 3 identity tabs, a disposable encrypted comm node, and a note in Jane's clipped digital typeface. Room 1703 to 1705. Wipe node after first contact. Jess raised a brow.
Comforting as ever.
Ava tucked the envelope into her jacket. Settle in. We move on Blake tomorrow. Tonight we keep our heads down.
They stepped into the elevator together.
The mirrored walls reflected 3 immaculate executives, their sharp suits and sharper eyes multiplied into infinity. For now they looked like part of the machine. In the morning they'd start dismantling it. Chapter 3 Pre-op. Scalpel and static. The curtains in Ava's room barely kept out the Shanghai daylight. She woke before dawn anyway, body tuned to mission time rather than local clocks.
A hot rinse, a black cup of coffee using water from the in-room purifier, then she laid out her kit across the hotel bed like a surgeon arranging scalpels.
Pistol. Silencer, magnetic dampener, not the old wrap and pray style. Slimline com tab. Lockpicks disguised as hairpins. An identity tab and a flash drive containing their forged IDs, all stored in an encrypted pocket. She checked, double-checked, then slid everything back into hidden compartments. Precision was ritual, ritual kept her steady. A knock at the adjoining door.
Jess didn't wait.
She shoved it open with a bao bun in one hand and a duffel in the other.
"Breakfast of champions," she said around a mouthful, dropping the bag with a thud.
Gun oil came with the bag, like a smell you couldn't scrub away.
"You know housekeeping's going to love that," Ava muttered.
Jess grinned, snapping open a collapsible carbine and running a quick biometric sync across the receiver.
"Relax.
I'll tip." Maggie drifted in last, silk robe tied carelessly, coffee cup in hand.
She looked like she was spending the day at a spa, instead of on a mission to grab a scientist.
Setting her cup down, she unrolled a velvet wrap across the desk. Inside lay a neat array of scalpels, syringes, and compact vials, each labeled with a micro QR tag. Ava raised a brow.
"Planning to save a life or take one?" "Extraction has more than one meaning," Maggie said smoothly, snapping on latex gloves. "Sometimes it pays to look like a medic instead of a merc."
Jess chuckled.
"And sometimes it pays to look like you're about to stab someone with a needle full of fuck knows what."
They moved in a practiced silence. Weapons were clean to the point of ritual. Smart gun diagnostics verified the biometric overrides had been installed. Magazines checked and sealed in EMP-resistant wraps. Maggie tried on disguises in the mirror. Quick wigs, prescription frames that altered facial recognition, heat maps, subtle makeup changes that shifted her profile just enough to confuse a camera stack. Jess hunched over a magnifying glass and a spool of precision wire, soldering a replacement chip into a micro-drone the size of a housefly. Ava thumbed the identity tab, bringing her tablet alive. The tab blinked, exchanged a handshake, and the ghost feed node they'd been given when they arrived at the hotel pinged an acknowledgement, a tiny green pulse, auto-burn timer ready but dormant. Jane's package was there, waiting on a layered cache, root sims, thermal sweeps, and a trimmed digital twin model of the facility. Ava scanned the overlays and marked entry and exit corridors in a single motion. Finally, she slid the slate aside.
"Recon this afternoon."
"In and out, quiet. We grabbed the target tonight." Jess tossed a rag onto the bed and grinned.
"When has it ever stayed quiet with us?" "It always gets loud," Maggie said, not looking up from her reflection as she adjusted a wig and checked a vial's cap.
Ava didn't argue. She only nodded once. Because Maggie was right. Chapter 4: Recon.
The eyes in the glass.
The afternoon heat pressed down on Shanghai, thick and damp enough to cling to the skin. Traffic snarled in all directions, horns blaring like an orchestra tuning badly, mopeds darting through impossible gaps. Ava adjusted her sunglasses and kept her stride even.
On the surface, she was just another businesswoman leaving her hotel with 2 colleagues. Nothing about her said mercenary. Nothing said predator.
Jess trailed half a step behind, dressed down in jeans and a leather jacket that barely concealed the restless set of her shoulders. Maggie was the opposite, linen trousers, soft blouse, oversized designer shades, every inch the board executive's wife. The shopping bag on her arm held not scarves but a tablet, the high-tech drone Jess had built the night before, and a handful of spares in case someone got SWAT happy. They blended.
They had to.
The metro air was stale and hot, heavy with bodies and the buzz of fluorescent lights. A wall of adverts, beauty creams, tech launches, finance firms glared down as they descended with the rush hour crowd. They'd chosen to skip autopiloted transport. They needed to see the routes themselves, not filtered through a feed.
"Plenty of cameras," Maggie murmured without moving her lips. "I counted 6 before the gates," Jess said softly.
2 gate senses, and a few guys who don't look like commuters. Ava didn't answer. To anyone watching, she was just another traveler squinting at a map. But her gaze tracked their route through Shanghai, cross-checking against Jane's schematics. The facility sat at the city's edge, disguised as a biomedical research campus. To the world, just another cube of glass and steel.
To Ava, it was a cage. They slipped through the gates, tabs on low power mode to spoof civilian data. The train hummed to life, carriage rocking, chatter of Mandarin and Cantonese rolling around them. "What's our cover if anyone asks?"
Maggie murmured.
"Huxley Global Consultants," Ava said. "Research into biotech investment opportunities."
Jess smirked.
"Fancy way of saying we're nosy."
Ava didn't respond, but focused on her surroundings and the faces around them.
The train dove under the river, then rose into Shanghai's forest of skyscrapers.
Glass towers gleamed overhead, mirrored by neon plazas. They disembarked with the crowd and merged into the street. Ava's eyes kept moving. Traffic cameras blinked on poles. Uniformed guards lingered in doorways. Twice, she caught reflections in glass, men in suits pacing a little too perfectly behind them. Were they Jane's backup team or someone else's eyes? They ducked into a cafe with frosted windows, the air sharp with tea and fried oil. Ava ordered something they didn't touch. Maggie unzipped the shopping bag just enough to slip the drone out. The well-fed housefly perched on her knee, then hummed to life under the table. The tablet in her lap flickered with a grainy feed, signal interference from urban density, maybe deliberate jamming.
"Eyes up," Maggie muttered.
The drone lifted past the window, and into the humid late afternoon. Shanghai stretched in steel and shadow. Maggie angled it toward the facility, past walls, manicured grounds, and security gates. Ava leaned close. Rows of motion sensors. Patrol routes marked by drifting specks of uniforms. Windows blacked out save for one wing glowing faintly blue.
"Heat signatures," Maggie said, tapping the screen.
Figures bloomed, clusters of guards, a few staff. And a cluster of 3 in the glowing wing.
"A doctor, maybe,"
Jess murmured.
"Maybe," Ava said.
"Or bait."
The feed stuttered.
Static chewed the image.
"Murd," Maggie swore, thumped the tablet. "Smart jammers."
"Targeted." "I've got maybe 90 seconds before the drone fries, or they trace the origin."
"Entry and exit points?"
Ava asked, tone clipped. Maggie's fingers flew. Loading dock. Underground garage. Side gate leading to a narrow emergency stairwell. All viable. All risky. "Kill the feed before it cooks," Ava ordered. Then the feed flatlined. Maggie snapped the tablet shut.
"They know we're here."
Ava kept her face still, but her gut twisted. Jane's file hadn't mentioned jammers. Sloppy intel, or someone wanted them blind.
"We adapt," she said, rising. "Extraction stays on schedule."
Maggie slid the tablet back in the bag, then dabbed her lipstick. They stepped back into the Shanghai dusk, neon bleeding against the sky, exhaust thick in the air. Somewhere in that maze of steel and glass, Dr. Karen Blake was waiting, whether for them or for someone else, Ava wasn't sure. Chapter 5, Extraction. Point Delta. Back at the hotel, the suite felt too polished, too sterile. Plush carpet, chrome fittings, glass coffee table, all the trappings of corporate wealth. Ava still had the sense the walls were listening. Maggie set the shopping bag on the sofa, while Jess tore open a protein bar with her teeth.
"Well,
that was fun.
Place is locked down tighter than a fucking vault."
"Banks still get robbed," Maggie said, toed off her heels and perched on the armchair.
"It's a matter of pressure and timing."
Ava spread the holo map, the drone footage layered and keyed across the desk, blue and red outlines shimmering in the dim light.
"3 options," she said, tapping the overlays in turn. "Loading dock, too exposed."
"Underground garage, better cover, but cameras and patrols sit on the ramps." "Side gate to the staff stairwell, least observed but carded."
"It can be spoofed, but that raises risk." "Least watched often equals a trap." "Great," Jess said, crumpling the wrapper. "This is going to be a cakewalk straight into a fucking meat grinder."
The ghost feed node on the table pulsed green.
None of them moved.
Ava thumbed it, opened the channel, read the tagline, "Node active, secure handshake open." A single clipped line arrived.
"Extraction team online.
Deliver package to Point Delta. Exfil window, 0200 to 0300. No delays.
No mention of Blake, Maggie said, leaning forward. Just package. Like she's freight. That's how Kruger sees it, Ava replied. She killed the node.
It would auto-burn on a timer, she'd purge anything left later. The city hummed beyond the windows, the bun's distant life leaking into the room.
Jess snapped to her feet. This isn't just prepped, it's a fucking stage show.
Jammers earlier, static, targeted, that's surgical, not sloppy.
It's a straight-up fucking ambush dressed up as a job. We're walking into a setup. I know, Ava said. Then why the fuck are we doing it?
Jess demanded. Because the contract's live, Maggie purred, voice cool.
Because the money cleared. And because we get paid extra to walk into a kill zone.
She smiled, that casual flirtation with danger that always comes with the smell of an ambush. Jess spat a curse.
Fine. Then let's make sure if it's a trap, we're the ones doing the springing.
Ava nodded. We move at 0200.
Quiet insertion.
Backup team will be at Point Delta for pickup. If Blake is where the intel says, we pull and hand off.
If she's not, she let the sentence hang.
Improvisation would be required. Maggie arched a brow.
And if Jane or Kruger is setting us up?
Ava let a ghost of a smile slip.
Then they find out what happens when you screw with the Daughters of Iron.
She skipped the usual formalities. They'd worked together too long to need a full rundown.
Same rules as always, she said. Stay quiet. Trust your eyes, not the feed.
If the grid drops, follow the fallback. Blake before data.
If it turns ugly.
Jess smirked.
We make it uglier.
Maggie's mouth curved in that dangerous half-smile.
Good. I was getting bored.
Ava let the silence settle. They all knew what came next, the ritual calm before the chaos. Gear check in 20, Ava said. We move at 0100 to the staging point. Insertion at 0200. Jess checked her kit.
We'll take the garage approach, if the ramp cycles are clean.
Less exposed at first, easier to move to the stairwell. She tapped the band around her wrist, identity tab on low power, ready to spoof if needed. Maggie slid the tablet into its wrap, smoothing her linen trousers.
We keep to the timeline.
No chatter on open channels. We get in, get out, the other team handles the exchange. No heroics unless the situation demands it. Ava looked from them to the holo map, corridors and blind spots rendered in faint light.
One more thing.
She leaned forward, voice low. If anything smells off, the package wording targeted jammers, anything, we pull and burn the node. No handoffs. We own the failure, and we live to fight another day. Maggie's smile softened. Jess's jaw set.
The suite became an armory.
Black duffels unzipped, Kevlar folding into place, carbine stocks whispering as they locked. Jess clipped a suppressor into place, the sound was too final in the quiet. She slung her carbine, checked her sidearm and tucked spare mags into her jacket.
Locked, cocked, ready.
Maggie was slower, meticulous, dark wig pinned, syringe slid into a thigh holster, compact medkit masquerading as an evening clutch. A swipe of lipstick, battle paint, not vanity. Ava strapped a harness under her jacket, holsters settling into place. Comms kissed her ear for a test ping.
Check. Check, Jess replied. Check, Maggie murmured, tugging on black gloves.
They moved like shadows down the service elevator, out a rear exit, and into the city's low-slung night. The same driver waited, the same unreadable face, and the sedan slid them deeper into Shanghai's sprawl. Neon smeared across the windshield. 2 blocks from the facility, they disembarked into the river of delivery bikes and night workers. Ava gave a small nod. The team dissolved into the alleys, threading lanes until they converged at the unmarked side gate stenciled staff only. Jess produced a pick from her glove, her fingers worked with the ease of habit. Click. The lock yielded without protest. Maggie slipped inside first, vanishing into the stairwell. Jess followed, carbine low, eyes slicing the dark. Ava sealed the gate behind them. The city's roar fell away. Concrete walls rose close. The stairwell smelled of bleach and rust, their footsteps were soundless, practiced ghosts on black leather soles. Jess led, carbine angled low. Maggie moved between them, hand brushing the railing as if counting steps. Ava brought up the rear, comms whispering faintly at her ear.
Thermal sweep, she breathed.
Maggie paused, pulling a lipstick-sized scanner from her clutch. She swept it across the door marked Sub-Level B, the readout pulsed green. 2 guards, corridor left. 3 cameras on rotation.
Silent or fast?
Jess murmured.
Silent, Ava said. Always silent.
Jess eased the door open a fraction, the fluorescent spill washing over her face. She slipped through, carbine raised. A guard ambled past, board, rifle slung low. Jess flowed forward in one smooth arc, arm around his throat, hand clamping over his mouth. A muffled choke, then silence. The man sagged. Maggie caught him easily, syringe already in hand.
A quick jab to the neck.
The body went limp. They lowered him to the tiles like a lover into bed. The second guard appeared, whistling. He didn't make it halfway before Ava moved. 1 step from the shadow, knife flashing once under his ribcage. He folded without sound. Ava wiped the blade clean on his uniform, dragged the body behind a stack of crates and stripped the badge.
Cameras, she asked.
Looping now, Maggie replied, fingers flying across the slim tablet tucked in her clutch. 1 by 1 the red eyes of surveillance blinked to green.
Clear path to the lab, Jess confirmed, scanning the corridor. No patrol chatter.
Comms are dark.
Move, Ava ordered.
They slipped deeper, the hum of refrigeration units and fluorescent buzz filling the sterile air. Chinese characters lined the walls, guiding them through a maze of locked doors and glass partitions.
Left junction leads to the restricted wing, Maggie whispered. Blake should be there.
Time? Ava asked.
7 minutes until shift change.
We're good. They rounded the corner and froze. 2 technicians in white coats stepped from a side door, chatting in Mandarin, ID tabs glinting at their collars. Jess raised her carbine, finger tight on the trigger. Ava lifted a hand. Wait.
The techs turned right, disappearing down the next corridor. Too close, Jess muttered. Not close enough to matter, Ava said, already moving. She swiped the stolen badge against the scanner. The lock clicked.
The lab door eased open. There she was, Dr. Karen Blake, hunched over a bank of monitors. Hair tied back in a messy knot, lab coat rumpled, eyes sharp and alarmed.
She looked up as they entered. You shouldn't be here, she hissed. Neither should you, Jess returned. No.
Blake's voice shook.
You don't understand. I don't know what you've been told, but whatever it is, you've got the wrong idea.
Ava's pulse spiked.
Explain, she said cold.
Kruger wanted me to disappear, Blake said, sagging into her chair.
I was placed here deep cover, to find who on our side was feeding data to the Chinese.
I found an encrypted thread and sent it to my handler at the agency, Kruger.
He told me to stand down. Said it was nothing.
I dug.
It pointed back at him. I think he set this up. Sent you to tidy it. Her hands trembled.
If I'm right, you're not rescuing a defector, you're recovering a problem. Jess's jaw tightened, her finger twitched near the trigger. Maggie's eyes darted between the scientist and Ava. A static pop in Ava's ear cut the room. A voice flat and clipped, familiar but not Jane's.
Team compromised.
Abort.
What the fuck, Jess swore.
Lab lights flared crimson as the building's security protocols slammed online. Sirens began to wail. Heavy shutters folded into place over corridor exits with a metallic scream.
We're burned, Maggie hissed.
Boots pounded outside, Mandarin shouts cut through the alarm. The lab door thunked as the overrides locked it from the corridor. Company incoming, Jess said, swinging the carbine up. Blake grabbed Ava's sleeve.
They'll kill me if I stay. And they'll kill you.
You were never meant to get me out. The door exploded inward, helmeted guards in tactical gear poured through.
The first wave hit.
Jess fired 3 quick suppressed shots, 2 guards dropped, another slammed into a console. Maggie snapped a scalpel from the tray. A guard lunged past, she drove the blade home into his neck. Ava hauled Blake behind a lab bench and fired twice at an advancing visor.
We need an exit. Rooftop pickups shot, Maggie yelled over the din. Facilities in full lockdown.
We're boxed.
Not boxed.
Rerouted. Ava's eyes darted across the lab, an emergency schematic flickered across a wall screen, and she memorized the lines. Service tunnels sub-level C, they tie into storm drains.
Storm drains.
Jess spat, snapping in a fresh mag. Didn't Jane's brief say to avoid them because the overflow system is unstable?
I don't feel like drowning tonight. Unless you like dying here, Ava snapped.
Blake held against a console, eyes wide.
Kruger will kill us all. Kruger isn't here.
Ava shoved a sidearm into the scientist's trembling hand.
If you want to live, you fight.
A blast rolled through the room, smoke grenades spat white mist. Red lasers cut the haze. Shapes moved in the doorway like teeth. Jess grinned.
Fuck it, let's improvise. Then improvise fast, Ava barked. Move.
They surged, dragging Blake into the choking smoke toward the stairwell, and sub-level C alarms screamed. The compound's automated systems screamed over them. The stairwell smelled of bleach and damp concrete. Metal steps rang under their boots. Maggie held up a hand.
They froze.
Footsteps above, steady, deliberate, too organized to be rent-a-guards. Ava keyed her comms silent. The stairwell plunged into shadow, lit only by the pulsing red of emergency beacons. A voice came through the hijack channel, calm, clinical, amplified through the building's comms.
Not Jane. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Ava, said Kruger, voice smooth as an invoice.
Blake went rigid.
Kruger, she breathed.
Jess's teeth showed.
Son of a whore.
Keep moving, Ava hissed, pushing them down. Kruger's voice flowed on, self-satisfied and low. This was supposed to read like a botched agency extraction. My employers paid handsomely for an international incident. Chaos is good business.
Even if you get out of the building, I can still make the rest work.
Ava let his words hang.
Let him brag. Let him reveal himself.
They'd catalogued his arrogance, now they'd use it to their advantage. The footsteps sharpened into ordered movement. Armored shapes slid into the stairwell's mouth, disciplined and silent, hunting. Ava snapped a hand signal. Jess lobbed a flashbang. White-hot light and a pressure wave tore through the stairwell. Shouts rose, concrete splintered, and gunfire stamped lines of sound into the air.
Go.
Ava roared. They ran. They burst through the door into sub-level C. The tunnels were low, dripping, the air thick with damp and rot. Water ran black through the channels, rats scattered as they splashed past. Behind them, the hunters regrouped. Radio chatter snapped in clipped Mandarin. A deeper alarm joined the wail above, low, metallic, angry.
They're driving us like cattle.
Jess shouted over the echoes.
Then we turn the pen into a kill box, Ava snapped, dragging Blake along.
They ran through narrowing pipes, gunfire chasing their heels. The storm drains yawned ahead, moonlight sliving through rusted grates. But movement flickered beyond them, silhouettes crouched, rifles ready.
Not out yet. Not even close.
Maggie hurled a smoke charge, grey flooding the tunnel. Jess dropped to a knee, carbine spitting controlled bursts.
Move.
Ava kicked the grate free. Cold night air hit them like a slap. She shoved Blake through first, then hauled herself into the open. The river shimmered close by, black, fast, unforgiving. Overhead, a VTOL skiff swept low, its rotors cutting the night. A rope ladder whipped violently in the downdraft. Jane must have anticipated the fallback route, rerouting the pickup when the rooftop failed.
But Kruger was already there.
He stepped from the shadows, immaculate suit, gun leveled, voice smooth.
You really are everything they said.
Efficient, but predictable. Hand her over and you get a bonus and a ride home. Blake flinched.
You can't let him.
Ava didn't look at her.
Sorry, Kruger, but I don't take post-mission offers.
She raised her pistol and fired once. The round punched clean through his chest, blooming red across his suit. He staggered, eyes wide with shock as he toppled backwards, slipping into the river's current. The water took him, without ceremony.
Up.
Ava barked without a second glance at Kruger's sinking corpse. Maggie seized Blake and shoved her toward the ladder. Jess followed, blood soaking her shoulder. Ava stayed low, firing until the slide locked back, then jumped, catching the last rung as rounds sparked off the concrete below. The VTOL banked hard, lifting them into the night. Shanghai's skyline blurred beneath, neon and chaos shrinking to glittering veins of light. Inside the cabin, the air reeked of gunpowder and adrenaline. Jess tore her sleeve open, binding her wound with one hand, grin crooked.
All that for one scientist. Hope she's worth it.
Maggie smoothed her wig back into place, voice cool.
She will be. Or someone will answer for this much trouble.
Across from them, Ava sat opposite Blake, expression unreadable, eyes half closed.
The hum of the engines drowned everything. The job was technically complete.
The client was dead, but at least they'd received the deposit.
Not a complete loss.
Survival was the only victory that counted. The world keeps turning, and so do the Daughters of Iron. Keep an eye out for Ava, Maggie and Jess's next adventure. Ghosts of Iron coming soon. About the author. Joan de la Haye writes dark and twisted thrillers featuring dangerous women, cold-blooded assassins, and survivors who turn the tables violently. Her stories push boundaries, and revel in the kind of justice that doesn't play by the rules. Her characters don't wait for permission, they take control, exact revenge, and refuse to be victims. If you enjoy thrillers with bite, grit, and unapologetically fierce heroines, you've just found your new favorite author. Visit her digital lair at www.joandelahaye.com.